Makot. Parshat Toldot. Ve'elu Toldot Yitzchak ben Avram. These are the generations, the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Abraham. Abraham gave birth to Yitzchak. All right, the question here is obvious, and it's asked by a lot of commentators. It says in the Torah, these are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. And then it says, Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So we already know that. I mean, if Yitzchak is the son of Avram, so obviously Avram was the one who gave birth to him. He was the son. So why does it have to repeat it? So there's a lot of different answers, and I'd like to go through some of them. We'll learn today. Let's just look at the next sentence. Yitzchak was 40 years old when he took Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, Arami, from Padan Aram. She's the sister of Lavan Arami, Lo Lisha. So we'll go back to the first sentence over here, but let's just do this. First of all, a little bit of genealogy, right? There was a man called Terach, and he had three sons. One of the sons was Avraham, then his name was Abram. Another one was Haran, and another one was Nahor. And it was so here we have these three sons. Avram, Haran, and Nahor. And here what we're learning in the Torah is mostly the main offspring of Avram was Yitzchak, right? Yitzchakin. But one second. Avram had a brother, right? Haran, and another brother that was called Nahor. So Haran, he had three children. One of them was Milcah. She got married to his brother, Nahor. Another one was Sora. She got married to Avram. So in other words, Avram and Nahor, the two brothers, they got married to the Haran's daughters. And then they had another son. Haran had a son called Lot. So Haran had three children, Lot, Milcah, and Sora. Lot, we don't hear anymore about him. Lot just sort of gets lost. That was also the story of Sodom and Amorah, and his wife turns into a thing of salt, a pillar of salt. But now we have Avram gets married to Sora, and Nahor, Avram's brother, he gets married to the other daughter of Haran, and she's Milcah. He gives birth to one son, and his name is Betuel. And Betuel gives birth to two children. And that's the ones that are important here. One of them is Rivka. She comes out to be holy. And everybody else is all, debauched. Her brother, her father, Betuel, he's a bad guy. Lavan, worst of the worst. Tries to destroy all the Jewish people. His name is even mentioned in the Haggadah of Pesach. So that's what we're holding now. So we have Nahor gives birth to Betuel. Betuel has these two children. One of them is Rivka, and she's going to get married now to Avraham's son, Yitzchak. So even though all this is in the family, and these are all brothers and cousins and etc., but it ends up that the only ones that are really worth anything of the whole business is Yitzchak and Rivka. and Avram. Now, it's a big miracle to take Rivka out of this. This is what we learned last week's Torah portion, because Rivka was in the middle of all these evil people. So let's go back now a little bit, and let's go. Oh, here we go. These are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. See, first of all, Rashi. Rashi is the basic one. Ela told us Yitzchak. What are the offspring of Yitzchak? Yaakov and Esav that are mentioned later on. Then after that, it repeats itself seemingly, and it says Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. After God said his name was Avraham, then he gave birth to Yitzchak. So that's what it says. When Avram was born, he wasn't born with the name of Yitzchak, of Avraham. He was born with the name Abba, Ram. And when God gave him the bris milah, then he changed his name. God changed his name to Abraham. So that's what Rashi explains. One of the explanations. Why does it have to say that these are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham? To tell you that when he was born, his name wasn't Avraham. I'm sorry. When he was born, you might think his name wasn't Avraham, because Avram's name didn't used to be Avram always. It was Avram. So maybe he gave birth to Yitzchak, and then afterwards he changed his name. So he says, no, that's what it's coming to tell us. Now these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham, and you should know that when he was born, his name was also Avraham. And this is before his name was changed, and before Yitzchak was born, Avram's name had been changed. It says after God called his name Avraham, and afterwards he gave birth to Yitzchak. Okay, we might seem to be a sort of a simple thing, but it says that Abraham saw the stars, and he said, according to the stars, that I'm not going to give birth to any children. So God said, you're right, Avram is not going to, but Avraham will. And that's when God gave him the bris milah and changed his name. So it says Avraham, he was the one that gave birth to Yitzchak. Of course, like we learned also in the Sikha, that Avraham reminds us that Abraham was circumcised at the time when he got his circumcision. That's when his name was changed. So this name implies in it this new covenant that Avraham made together with Hashem. Davar acher, another explanation. Al yedei shekatav katuv Yitzchak ben Avraham, because it says that these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. Therefore, it is necessary to tell us that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. Why? Because Leitzani Hador, the scoffers of the generation, Omrim were saying, Avimelech nis Abra Sora, that Sora got pregnant from Avimelech. Who was Avimelech? If you remember, Avimelech kidnapped Sora. He took her, and then the Sora made that there were all sorts of plagues there, and that he had to let her go. But Shahari, Kama Shanim Shata im Avram, Hari Sora was many years together with Avram, and they didn't have any children. Ma Asa Kodesh Baruch Hu, what did God do? Tsar Cluster Panim Shel Yitzchak, he made the face of Yitzchak look exactly like Avraham. Ve'idu called, then everyone knew that Avram gave birth to Yitzchak, right? Listen, Avram, he got the mitzvah of Lech Lecha when he was 75 years old. Then he had already been married to Sarah. Only 25 years later did he give birth to Yitzchak. So everybody figured, okay, Avram and Sarah, they were together at least for 25 years and they didn't have any children. That's a long time. And all of a sudden she gives birth to Yitzchak. Everybody said it must be that this was when she was taken prisoner by Abimelech, as he forced her, he raped her, and she had the child. So I said, everybody said that, everyone's calling him Yitzchak, the son of Avram, because, that's where he's living in his house and he's feeding him, but he's not really his father. That's what everyone was saying. So God made Yitzchak's face look exactly like him, like Avram. So everyone would look at him and they would say, Zekasuv Khan, it says Yitzchak ben Avraham. Yitzchak was the son of Abraham. Haya Shahari Edut, it was a testimony that Avram holid et Yitzchak. This was the testimony that it was Abraham that gave birth to Yitzchak and not Avimelech. Okay, you might think so. I mean, is it really that important what people think? And so the answer is number one, yes, it is very important. Why? Because you have to remember that Abraham, he, yeah, one second, excuse me, I have to answer. Hello, Ken. Mayim, Ken, just a second, just one second. Shania. I'm sorry, there's workers outside, and I have to bring them water, and I will bring them water. So please, let's put this on delay for a moment, and I'll be right back. I'm sorry. All right, resuming. All right, here's the Eben Ezra. Eben Ezra says a little bit different. He says that after Elah told us Yitzchak and Avram, after it mentions in the previous Torah portion the generations of Yishmael, as it comes back and mentions the generations of Yitzchak, namely Esav and Yaakov. Some people say that the reason it says Holid et Yitzchak, Avram Holid et Yitzchak, that they were similar to their father, like Rashi said. Some people say no, Holid means Avram Holid et Yitzchak, means that he brought him up. Avram Holid et Yitzchak, the word Holid also means Yoldu al Birkei Yosef, that he raised him, he brought him up. In other words, that's what it means that Abraham, he brought up Yitzchak, he brought him up, he educated him. Let's look at the Ramban. The Ramban says these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. It's talking about Esav and Yaakov that are spent. He just quotes Rashi. That's what Rashi is. Yedesh Katuv Yitzchak ben Avram. So everybody knew that Avram was the one who gave birth because everybody saw that everyone was saying that Avimelech gave birth to him and Hashem made his face, Tzara Kodesh Baruch Hu cluster panav. He made the face of Yitzchak look exactly like that of Avram. So everyone would look and they'd say, oh, Avram Oled Yitzchak. This is the son of Avraham. Rabbi Avraham, that's what Rashi says. Rabbi Avraham that's the Eben Ezra. Avram ben Ezra, that's the Eben Ezra. However, he says the reason is Hodat means he godol v'rabba, that he brought him up, like Birkei Yosef, like it says v'yishalchem yad Yitzchak bano. Okay, so he said, and the Ramban says, Anachon be'enai, I think that the best explanation is like this. He's going back now, v'hechila v'yachas kaminaka kasu lachzor anshi amala al rosh yachas. He's just going, he's repeating now because he wants to start the chain, tell her what the chain of the inheritance is. So it's like it says, B'nai Shem, Elam, Ashur, Ach, Parshad, Balud, Aram. That's what it says in the Torah. And then it goes back and it mentions Ar Parshad. Ar Parshad, he gave birth to Shalah. So it's saying the same thing. According to the Ramban, what the Torah is doing is just starting off a list. These are the generations of Yitzchak ben Avram. And now it's starting off the list in chronological order. Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. Yitzchak, he gave birth to, etc. That's what the Ramban says. Another reason is similarly, it says, Elah told us Yishmael ben Avram. And then if you say the same thing, Elah told us Yitzchak ben Avram, then Shivashem, and you're making them both equal. So therefore, Hiktim Bachor. Od Shahaya Roi Sheitchil Ba'Avram. It was fitting that it should begin with Avram. How does the Torah start off? This Torah portion starts off. Ela told us Yitzchak ben Avram. Yitzchak's name is first. It says it's more fitting that it should start off with these are the generations of Avram. But it didn't want to do so. Why? Because then you might think that Yishmael, the offspring of Avram, were equal. Yishmael and the sons of Keturah, they were also the sons of Avram. It says those were the sons that Abraham sent to the east. Looking, therefore, he comes back and it says, Elah told us Yitzchak. Yitzchak is the most important one. And then it goes back and it says, Avram oleaded Yitzchak to tell you that he alone is really the offspring of Yitzchak. And the only one that's really important of Yitzchak, of the only one that's important to Avram, his offspring, is only Yitzchak. In other words, Avram gave birth to only one son. And who was that? Yitzchak, which is not so. He gave birth to Yishmael, and they were all the sons of Keturah. We learned in the part 6 sons she had. Said, but no, but those weren't really his sons. Because it says, Yitzchak Yikarech Lazar. Okay. It continues. Here's an interesting thing. Actually, this is also very interesting. We just don't have a lot of time here. Avram was called Avraham. Like it says, Avram is Abraham. Yitzchak is also called Avram. Like it says, Elah told us Yitzchak ben Avraham, right? Avram. See, look, what does it say? These are the generations. Elah told us Yitzchak ben Avram. Avram. But these are the generations of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. What is the son of Yitzchak? Avram. Right, Avram. Okay, you have to read it a little bit. You have to put the punctuation in a different place. It says another explanation. The forefathers, they were crowns for their children. In other words, the child, Yitzchak, went around very proud. You know who my father is? And the banim, itru la'avos. And the fathers, they crowned, the sons crowned the fathers. In other words, Yitzchak would go around and say, you know who my father is? Avram, the crown. And Avram would go around and say, you know who my son is? It's Yitzchak, that was the crown. That was the crown of Avram. Avos, itru la'banim, where it says, Tiferes banim avotam. It says that the glory of the sons are their fathers. Their fathers. And the crown of Yitzchak was his father. Banim itru la'avos, like it says, itru zakanim b'nei banim. The crown of Abraham was his son. It says, Lo nitzol Avram b'kivshan eish ela b'zechut Yaakov Avinu. Avram was saved from the fiery furnace because of the merit of Avram, of Yaakov. Sorry, Mashallah echad shehaya lo din, like a person that had a judgment in front of the duke, the ruler of the whole area. Yetzedinu b'lifnei shultan yisaref, and the duke said, burn him. Tzafon oto shultan for astrologia, but then the duke looked into the future, looked in a crystal ball or something, looked in the zodiac. Shu atid laholid bat v'hi nisat lamelech. All of a sudden, he saw this person that I'm going to kill. I saw him see in the future that he's going to have a granddaughter that I'm going to get married to, and it's going to get married to the king. He said, therefore, it's worthwhile to save. And this is from the Yalkut Shimoni. It's worthwhile to save this man, even though he's guilty, but if I let him live, he's going to give birth to this daughter that's going to marry the king. Also the same thing, Avram. Avram is the law came that he was going to be burned in front of Nimrod. God saw that in the future Yaakov was going to come from him. So God said, it's worthwhile to save Avram just in the merit of Yaakov. That's what it says. L'chein kol mar Hashem el beit Yaakov. That Yaakov, he's the one that redeemed at Avram. So we see that sometimes the sons can be the crowns and the grandsons can be the crowns of the children. Okay, so that's a few things that we can learn from Avram Holid Yitzchak. Tomorrow we'll go a little further and we'll learn the second Paramaron. Here's a very interesting one though. It says that we see that her brother was evil, her father was evil. God says Bad Betuel Arami. This is again the Yalkut Shimoni. That Rivka was the daughter of Betuel Arami. Why does it tell us that he's from Padan Maron and that it was an Arami? What does it say? Achot Lavan Arami. Also, the same thing that says that she was the sister of Lavan Arami. The word Ramai in Hebrew means a liar, a con man. Ela lomed lecha to teach you. Avia Ramai. Her father was dishonest. Achia Ramai. Her brother was dishonest. Anshe Makoma Ramayim. All the people in her town were all dishonest. But Tzedakah Tazu, and this one righteous girl, Rivka, Shehi Yotzes Mibneim, came from them. Lamhi Domeh, to what can you compare her? The Shoshana Ben Achuchim, to a rose growing among the thorns. Kativ, like it says, Vayishlach Yitzchak et Yaakov, Vayilech Padan Aram El Lavan. He went to Lavan, and that also from there he took out the daughters of Lavan. For that was Leah and Rachel. So here we see that the sister of Lavan gets married to Yitzchak, and the daughters of Lavan, they get married to Yaakov. And Lavan was the worst example of a human being that you could find, and certainly a terrible example of a father. And nevertheless, from all of this, terrible heritage and upbringing, you have the flower of Judaism, Rivka. She gave birth to all Judaism. So it comes to show that a person can overcome all obstacles if he wants to do good. All right, now let us learn the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Pause. All right, now we'll learn laws, Hilchos Shabbos. Hilchos Shabbos, Shin Kaf Chassid. It's raining outside very hard. Baruch Hashem. Israel needs rain. All right, we're learning about healing on Shabbos and what you can do and what you can't do. There are things that are forbidden from the Torah. There are things that are forbidden from the rabbis that you're not allowed to do to save a person on Shabbos. If you're saving a person's life, then you can pretty much do anything. If you're just saving a person's limb, then you can do pretty much anything, but you have to do it with a change, unusually. If a person is just bedridden, then, or his whole body is sick, then you can do anything from the rabbis. Or you can even tell a non-Jew to do something from the Torah, because that's also the rabbis. So, okay, we learn all these different. We also learn that in general, you're not supposed to do anything on Shabbat for a person that just has a general pain or general discomfort. You're not allowed to do anything. You're not even allowed to do things that look like you're healing, that look like you're doing some sort of healing, giving a massage or something. If it looks like it's therapeutical, you can't do it on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do anything that looks like you're healing on Shabbos if the person is not really sick. There's a person just has a little pain, something, or a little headache or something, that you can't take aspirin, for instance. Mavirim, how do I make this smaller here? Ma'avirin gilidei maka besachin beshemen b'makomot shedaracham lasoch. Okay, you can remove like a thin, like a scab from a wound. It's a thin scab. You have to be sure you don't draw blood. Very important. You have to be sure you do not draw blood on Shabbos. It has the law also that if a person has a thorn stuck in his hand or somewhere, so you're allowed to remove the thorn, but you have to be very careful that you do not draw blood. That you're not allowed to draw blood on Shabbat. So you can also remove like a thin scab or something from a wound if you're sure that it's not going to draw any blood. And also you're allowed to smear it with oil. If you live in a town where people smear themselves with oil, not for healing, like it's learned in Shin Kav Zayin. Some people just smear themselves. On, for instance, Yom Kippur, it's forbidden to do what they call sicha. You're not allowed to spread oil on your. Well, there's some people on Shabbos you're allowed to do it, right? So you have to be, but it has to not be done for healing at all. Right? Some people put cream on their hands or something just to make it a little more comfortable. But you're not allowed lesuch bechelev, but you're not allowed to rub in fat. Why? Because it melts. When you take the fat originally, it's like a clump. It's all solidified. When you smear it, so you're melting it. And what's wrong with that? It's forbidden for the same reason you're not allowed to melt like ice with your hand or something. Some people say it's nolad. You're giving birth to water from it. You're changing the form. Afilu gomer maka, even if you have a wound that's already healed. Namely, it's already healed, and all that it has is just this like thin sort of a scab on top of it, and you're not getting any pain from it. You're not getting any pain from it. Nevertheless, it's okay to remove the scab, a thin scab that's on there, and also to smear oil on it for pleasure, just for pleasure. And nobody will think that you are doing it for healing, which doing it for healing is forbidden. But you cannot put oil and hot water mixed in together on a wound, and also not on a piece of cloth, and take this piece of cloth now and put it on the wound. Why? Because if you do that, you can see that you are intending to heal. But you can't put it on your flesh outside of the wound. Okay, now, it's the same thing here. We have a Band-Aid. Put a Band-Aid on a wound. Are you allowed to do that? Well, usually you put a Band-Aid on the wound is not to heal the wound. It's not to heal. Usually you put the Band-Aid, usually the Band-Aids don't have any healing medicinal effect. It doesn't have a Band-Aid with iodine or something on it. A Band-Aid has like some sort of something that can be compared to oil, so that it just doesn't stick. But the main thing is it protects the wound. We'll get to this. It protects the wound from opening up more or anything, and that's permissible to do. That doesn't look like you're doing a healing. But to take oil and water, put it on a cloth, and then put this cloth on a wound, you can't do it because you can see that you are trying to heal it. But what you can do is you can put this oil and hot water outside of the wound, because then it's not obvious that you're intending to do healing. And then if this fat or whatever happens to be that runs into the to to the wound, there's nothing wrong with that. That's if you put oil and water together. But if you put just oil alone, mutar l'sein alel shemen levado, you can put oil alone on a wound in places where people do that without healing. And saying also you can put also hot water alone, if the water was heated up Erev Shabbos. And also it's permissible to put oil alone on a piece of cloth, and put this cloth on the wound, because it doesn't look like you're healing. It just looks like you're protecting the wound. For some reason, oil and water, they would mix it together. It had some sort of a therapeutic effect on the wound. Okay, but if you're going to put oil on a cloth, that's okay, but don't put hot water on it. Why? Because it's a gezerah. Maybe you'll come to squeeze the cloth. But oil, you don't have to worry maybe you're going to squeeze it, because your squeezing won't really help get the oil out of it. The oil, first of all, won't be usable after it gets squeezed out. Not only that, it gets absorbed so much that it doesn't really come out by squeezing. So there's no decree. It is permissible to put on top of a wound a sponge or a piece of garment that's dry if they are brand new, because this is not for healing. It's only there just so that the wound won't open up by means of your garments. That is, your garments will rub against it and open up the wound. But you can't put a piece of old garment used. Why? And I don't know exactly how this plays out as far as medicine goes, but old garments heal. When you put an old garment, a clean, of course, a garment that's used, you put it on a wound, somehow or other heals it. What are we talking about? If you never used this garment to put on a wound, but if it was already on a garment, then it doesn't heal anymore. Even though that it's old and you washed it and all. Okay, does this work? I don't know. Maybe it used to work at some time in the past. I've never heard of such a thing working, and that an old garment that has never been used to put on a wound, it helps to heal the wound. Let's do one more. You can put a leaf from a tree. You can put a leaf on a wound on Shabbat. Why? Because everyone knows that you're only putting the leaf there just to protect the wound so it doesn't get dirty or whatever. But you can't put a leaf from a grape tree, a grapevine. Grapevine leaves you can't put on because they heal. And it's the same law with any type of leaves that are known to heal. You can't put them on a wound. If you did put it on a wound and you remove them after darkness, even purposely, you can put it back on. Why? Because they didn't forbid on Shabbat to make a healing because of this thing of maybe you'll grind up spices only when you begin to do it on Shabbat. But to continue a treatment that's already been begun before Shabbat, that is not forbidden. But a ratia is usually a piece of cloth that has medicine on it. And that was put on before Shabbat on the wound. Then if you remove it on Shabbat on purpose, then even if it's still in your hand and you have intention to put it back on, it's forbidden to put it back on. Why? It's a decree because maybe you will smear it and you will make the ointment that you had on this piece of cloth, you'll smear it and make it smooth on Shabbat. And that's forbidden because of memachek, like we learn in Simmons Shin Yud Dalet, you can learn. But if the ointment is already, it's on the wound before Shabbat, and it slipped off from the wound on its own after the sunset, after Shabbat came in, then there's no decree over here, and it's permissible to put it back on, even if it fell totally off. The law is like it fell off. What are we talking about? If it fell on a vessel. And here there's strange laws about this if it fell on a vessel, but this is the law. If a person had on his wound a poultice, and he took it off on purpose, he removed it, you can't put it back. But if it fell off, and only if it fell on a vessel, then you can put it back on. But if it fell off, and if it fell on the ground, then if you want to put it back on the wound, it's like you're starting the treatment on Shabbat, and that's forbidden. That's forbidden because of the decree of grinding up spices. Okay, this is if you do it on your own. But if you do it by means of a non-Jew, then it's permissible to put it on the wound, even lecharchila. If a person has pain and a little bit of sickness, like we said before. But it's forbidden to tell to a non-Jew to make a poultice, to put this ointment on the cloth on Shabbat and put it on you. Why? Because that's, again, we said this thing of smearing. And smearing is a total malacha. And by means of a non-Jew, it's called a shvut gomor. It's a totally forbidden from the rabbis. And they did not permit it unless a person became totally sick, like we said before, or he's taken to bed, or he's taken to bed because of his sickness, like we said before, or if there's a danger to a limb, like we said before. Okay. But, so what do we say? If a person removes a poultice from his wound, if he takes it totally off, he can't put it back on again, because we're worried about smearing. He says, what about if a person doesn't take it totally off? He just takes this poultice and he reveals like a corner of it. And then he like wipes off he has a wound. And so he just cleans off the wound with a little bit of water or something like that. And then he puts back the poultice on, he puts it on, and then he lifts up the other side of the poultice and he wipes off over there. And then he says, that's okay. Why? Because he's not removing the whole thing at once. It's permissible to put it back on. But you have to be careful not to smear the poultice that he has on there, the ointment that's on there, because again, this thing of smearing, spreading out, making smooth a thing on Shabbat, which you're not allowed to do. All right, let's, Yochanan, you have to leave at 4. Let's learn a little bit of the Mishnah. So in Mishnah, we're learning Makot. And we'll try to make these classes, I think, let's say 20 minutes for each one, but we'll see. We'll see how it works. Learning Mishnah. You have to give me a couple of minutes here just so that I can find it. Excuse me one minute. Here it is. Okay. no. Okay. It's not working. Okay. Sorry. Give me another moment here, please, my friends. I'm sorry. I'm taking so much time. There it is. Oh. All right, we're on the way. We're on the way. One minute. There it is. Good. Hazorik Evan L'Reshut Arabim. We're talking about now going to the Ari Miklat. We'll learn 10 minutes. Hazorik Evan L'Reshut Arabim. A person who throws a stone into a public domain. V'harag, and he killed someone. Hari ze gola. He is sent to a city of refuge. In other words, let's look and see the explanation. Hazorik b'Gemorah explains, and the Gemorah explains. And the Gemorah explains that this is not talking about a person who just threw a stone where people are. If a person does that, then that's like mazid. I mean, true, he didn't have one particular person he wanted to kill, but he threw a stone, let's say from the 10th story on a bunch of people, and he killed somebody, then he's guilty of murder. Elamadubar b'mishnatenu, it's talking about a person who throws a stone in a pile of dirt, a pile of junk that's in a Rishus Harabim. Regilon b'nei Adam lipanat bo, that people usually go there. If they go there, they go to the bathroom or whatever. They throw their stuff there in the nighttime, but not in the day. And he happened to have this rock in his house, or a big, whatever it is, an old television, right? And he became a Baal Tshuva, and he decided, that's it. I'm going to throw this thing out the window. And that was this big junk pile outside of his house where people, so he throws it out. And it happens to be, Yush, that a person was there. And he got hit by this stone or this television that he threw out of his window. So this person, he threw it out. Usually there's nobody there in the daytime. Only in the nighttime. And he threw it out in the daytime. Since nifnim sham anashim lifamim, sometimes once in a while people go to the bathroom there in the daytime as well. Therefore, this is not really it's not really an onus. We can't say that it's totally accidental, but it's a shogeg, and therefore the person is. So what do we say? There are 3 levels of murder. One is a total accident. Then a person does not go to the city of refuge. Everybody has to run to the city of refuge. Anyone who kills someone runs to the city of refuge. But they have this case, and when they find out that it was a total accident, then he goes free. If they find out that the person was totally negligence on his part, he should have watched out, then he's free game for the family. The family of the dead person can kill him. But if it's a thing which is an accident, that it was an accident that he could have avoided, but on the other hand, it wasn't the type of a thing that was pure negligence, then he killed somebody. It was not his intention to do so. He runs to the city of refuge. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, said if he threw this, let's take our case, the television set out of his window, he threw it out of the window, and there was nobody there. And after he let it go, then someone ran over there, or he stuck his head out the window, or he ran in the way of this rock or the television. After he threw the stone, then the person was there. Then the person is totally, the one who threw is totally exempt. Shekatuv, like it says, when does a person run to a city of refuge? Umotza edreu mate. Hu yanusa lachad arim. He runs to one of the cities. This, he says, it has to be that the stone hit him, not he put himself in the way of the stone. Next case. What if a person throws a stone out into his own backyard and he kills somebody that went there? If the person who got damaged has permission to go there, that the owner of the house gave him permission to go into my backyard. You can come in my backyard and look at the flowers whenever you want to. And then he threw a rock out and killed him. Then then the one who killed him, he threw a rock out of his window. He didn't intend to kill anybody, but he gave him permission to be there. Then he has to go to Gullus. He should have been careful. If not, if he didn't give him permission to go there, then he's not exiled. The one who killed him is exempt from Gullus. Like it says, Asher Yavo El Re'eu Bayar. He said that what does it say in the Torah? If you went into the forest to chop wood and he killed somebody, but it has to be in a forest. What place? Just like the forest is a place where anyone can go. Also, any place where there's the permission for anyone to go, the one who's damaging and the one who's damaged. Hahorig sham b'shgaga, then he has to go to exile. Yatzeh chatzer, and this it comes to exclude a yard that the one who is damaged does not have permission to go there. If he killed him by accident, a person that went into his backyard without permission, then he is exempt from any exile. Some people say a little bit differently, and this ends today's class. We'll go back to this tomorrow, God willing. Thank you. See you all. God bless you. Shalom.